Now, when you hear the word legacy, what comes to mind? Is it the wealth you plan to pass down? Is it the family traditions you cherish? Or is it the values you hope to instill in future generations? As we step into this new year, it's time for a reality check. Now, you might feel prepared, but your family legacy might not be as secure as you think. In today's episode, we're going to do a deep dive into some statistics and we're going to talk about crafting a comprehensive game plan tailored for you. But that's not all. I want you to stay with us because by the end, you're going to have actionable steps that you're going to do to ensure that you're not merely planning for the present, but you're strategically securing your family's wealth for generations to come. So let's dive in. Now, I'm just going to say these statistics, when you hear them, are alarming. When I heard them, I was just shocked, but I recognize that this is probably true. And that is that over 70% of families lack a proper legacy plan. Now, as I've gotten into this space, I have become more aware of exactly what it takes to have a plan. But I remember talking about having legacy, my mother talking about passing on legacy. I've heard this my whole life. But when I started learning about actually what a legacy plan was, it wasn't what my mother was planning. Not that she didn't want to, she just didn't know. So that's why I love this episode because we're going to talk about how you properly do that and we'll talk about exactly what it contains. But only over 70% of them lack a proper plan. That means mostly everyone talking about legacy know nothing about legacy and they don't even have a plan to have it. Also, when we're talking about trust, even with a trust, I've learned that 95% of people don't even have the true asset protection that they think they have. Now, that one right there, because we've been taught that you have a trust to protect your assets, but 95% of them don't even have it. And it's so true. I've got real life examples of where that statement is true. You think of famous people like Prince, right? Prince made hundreds of millions of dollars, but when he died, he had no will, he had no trust. All of that went to probate. And we already know that's a costly process when things go to probate, but even people with money aren't even structured right. They don't even have true asset protection. But you want to make sure that you are structured properly. And we'll talk more about that as we go through this particular episode. But another thing that was most powerful to me is when I heard that 60% of wealth is lost by the second generation and then 90% by the third. Now that is powerful because I think about what I'm preparing right now and by what I'm preparing to know that if I'm not properly structured or properly planned, 60% of that's going to be gone by my son whenever it gets to my son. Like, I'm not creating this so that that can go away. And I promise you, those people who are structured right, they planned to make sure that that is not their reality. Those are true facts that stand by. Clearly, most people do not understand what it takes to have a legacy plan. And once you know you have a comprehensive plan, it's more than just having a will or a trust. You need to understand it's bigger than that. And most people will lose all the money that they've built up all because of those pitfalls. And I want to make sure that you have what you need to have in order to make sure that is not your reality. Now, you heard me talk about Prince because, Prince made a lot of money. He's not the only one that made tons of money that got lost because he didn't have a proper plan. So even the people that you love, your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles, they're leaving and things are going to probate. That is a reality because they didn't have a plan. So we want to make sure that you have a plan because those are the consequences that you will face when you don't have a proper plan in place. And, whether you make millions or whether you just have a house, those are things that you need to realize. Another thing that is reality is we have a lot of people who are getting married, remarrying, blending families, all of those things. When you're looking at even a blended family, you have to have those discussions to know how they are going to work together. Like my husband and I, we're a blended family. So he's got his, the kids that he came with, the kids that I have, we're blended. My siblings, his siblings, like we're a blended family. So when you're thinking about even your blended family, you have to think about how are you going to plan for that. So there's situations where parents pass on or remarry and they pass on. Those assets could inadvertently go to the children that the husband had in that blended family. Those are things you have to think about as you are putting together a solid legacy plan that will build out specifically what you want. But the one thing that is the worst, I believe, is when you feel and believe you've created a solid plan to protect your assets and something happens. Get an accident, big collapse, whatever, and now everything you had is at risk because you did not properly put together the right type of trust to protect your assets. And most times people don't find out that they have the wrong trust until they have one of those situations happen. And you don't want to find yourself in that situation where you have a trust in place that really did not give you full asset protection. And if you want to know if you have the right trust or not, because you could be having a trust. I know a lot of people who say they got a trust, and I could tell 9 times out of 10 that they have the wrong one. 95% of trusts are created with no asset protection. I'm just telling you. So if you want to know more, definitely send me some comments below. I'd love to be able to let you know if you've got the right one set up or not. So now that we've talked about some statistics and facts about legacy and what has happened and what isn't happening, I want to move into making sure you have a solid legacy plan. Now, these are the pieces that you must have when you have a robust legacy plan. It must contain these 4 things. You must have estate planning, you must have asset protection, you must have tax strategies, and you must have philanthropic goals. When you have those 4 elements in place, you have a solid, robust legacy plan. Because once again, it's more than a trust and it's more than a will. You need to make sure all those things are covered. And there's a role that's played, and your family plays a major role in that planning process. You don't want to exclude your family. It's all about communicating with your family exactly what those goals are and those plans and making sure they understand. Because if you didn't take the time to plan for that with your family, and heaven forbid you pass on, who's going to pass that down? Who's going to pass that legacy down? That's why most wealthy people, when they're in this space, they're doing more than simply putting a plan together. Their entire family's a part of that plan. How they've utilized their structure and put it all in place, they're fully aware. And guess what? They talk about it on a regular basis. They've created a way in which they are communicating what the plan is. Everybody understands. It's like being a team. You're a team. You're a family. So knowing how you are, first of all, structured, having those places, those things in place, and then making sure everyone is aware, because you must have open communication. And as I've been learning this process, me and my family, we have annual trips, sometimes quarterly, depending on who the players are, so that we are making sure that everyone is aware of what is at stake and what we are planning. So when you've made sure that those things fully align, that communication is everything. So you want to make sure you have that. And then you want to make sure that your goals as a family, your values are all built into that plan, because it's more than money. Like most people say, well, legacy plan, well, this is about money or what. No, it's not. It's every aspect of your family. What are the things that you as a family value? Talking about those things. What are your long-term goals? And we get together, I know we get together like 4 times a year, the core part of us, and then we share with the family annually just to make sure we're on board with what is expected. But when you properly align everybody's aware, and you've created that system of this is how we communicate, guess what? You can't do nothing but succeed. And you will find that as you go from generation to generation, that you do not, it doesn't erode. Your plan does not erode. It continues to thrive and grow. And that's the intention of your plan if that's how you are serious about moving that forward. Now, before we get into this last segment, if you have not subscribed and you've not set your notifications, go ahead and do this, because I want to make sure that as I send more information related to either legacy planning or anything else, you are aware of when I send those videos out. So in this last step, which I know you've been holding on for, I want to give you some actionable steps that you can do to secure your family's future. And I would say the first thing that you're going to want to make sure that you do is you're going to have to assess your current financial situation and what your legacy plan is. So I already told you what it must contain. So what does it look like today? You have to get to a point where you are establishing that right now. And not just the current situation, but where you are trying to go. So, especially with multiple businesses, if you have multiple businesses, you've got your long-term business goals in there, but you're looking at your current situation and where you're going and how you see that planning out. That is the first step, is assessing where you are. After you've assessed where you are, I will tell you, you want to make sure that you're engaging the right professional advisors to help you develop this comprehensive strategy. Now, I'm just going to first say, as a disclosure and a disclaimer, I am not giving anyone legal advice. I am not an attorney. I'm not trying to represent you. I just know what I've learned over time, and you need to make sure you have the right professional advisors. Now, I'm just going to say, because I've been doing this a long time, I have had a slew of advisors, and of the advisors I've had over the years, the ones I have right now replaced every last one of them. And the reason why I was misinformed by people who were professionals who thought they knew what they were doing, but that's all they really knew. As you heard me say earlier, 95% of people who have trusts put in place are put in wrong. And who put them in wrong? I'm not going to say it out loud, but you know who was creating your trust and putting it wrong. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're getting the right guidance, the right advice that's going to help you build, not just because that's what everybody else does. Or, all these advisors that people are picking up, or they're creating these wills and putting these things together, little templates. Like, is that truly legacy planning? Is that really creating a legacy plan? Or is that truly the advice that you should be following? I'm just going to tell you, you do your own research on what you need to do. I just know for myself, for the last 15 years, everyone I've had up to that point has given me misinformation. Every one of them. From my attorneys that I've had over the years, my mentors that I've had over the years, my accountants over the years, all of them. And I can only speak to me. You do your own analysis of your stuff. But it was only until now that I was like, man, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I thought of all the thousands of dollars that I've spent on advisors that were professionals that led me astray. So if you want to know more, I'd be glad to share with you. You do your own research, but the information that I have now is information that I'll just say there's information in the public that most people have, and then there's other information that's not private. It's just you have to run into somebody who knows this information to be able to get it. So I'll just say that and move to my next point, which is after you've engaged with your professionals and made sure you've got a comprehensive strategy, you want to then make sure you are involving your family in the discussion. So that, out of all of this that you create, that's probably one of the most important. It actually should be number one, but it's actually the third step in the process as you've identified. And you can involve your family surely into discussing what those things should entail, because you're creating alignment. You're creating having that synergy built in with the values that you as a family hold. So you need to regularly have those discussions to ensure they understand your wishes, they understand what it is that you are passing on that's going to pass down from generation to generation to generation. So you must include them. And then you want to make sure that you are implementing then your plan with clear documentation and your legal safeguards. Like, you want to just make sure that everything that you do is legally and lawfully structured and put in place that makes things work for you. And there's so like the knowledge in this space, it's not as complicated as I made it for the last 14 years. So these last 2-3 years, I've been structured exactly the way that I should be, and we've been executing that plan and making sure that everything is proper in place, and it's so much easier. Like, had I known it was this easy, that's why as I'm blown away when I think of how many years I've wasted, how much money I've wasted listening to people telling me things, and how much money I've spent, and now this piece here, and I'm like, oh wow, it's so seamless. So I definitely want to encourage you to make sure that whatever you choose to do, that you make sure that it's documented well and that you've got the safeguards in place to protect you. And then of course you have to regularly review that plan. You have to make the updates to the plan and adapt to the changes in your family dynamics and the laws, because you still follow everything to the letter of the law, and you make that thing move. But you regularly review it and update it, and you meet as a family to discuss it. And when you do those things, you do those 5 things, that is your plan to making sure that you will have a legacy plan that will go on generation to generation to generation. So I'm glad you had the opportunity to be with me today talking about this. And as we go through other conversations around legacy planning or building a family legacy, be sure that you are looking out for those episodes as they come out. So let's get out here and build out a family, a plan for yourself, because that is what then will transform your family as you then impact the world. Because remember, you're going to be giving to other people too through your plan. And as you are doing those things, those are the things that are going to allow you to transform the world.